Is it possible that the ego can use spirituality as a weapon to protect itself and to continue surviving? What is it that really demands freedom? And then, why does a human being have the need to feel unique or different from the rest? Okay. Is there truly something within all of us that demands a unique expression of itself? Is it truth? Is it ego? And how do we distinguish between the two? Can the ego use spirituality as a weapon to protect itself and continue surviving? Why would it not? What stops it? It would. It would do everything possible to continue surviving. When we say the ego is not an abstract entity. The ego is an entity that lives, eats, breathes, walks. We are the ego. Right? Now, won't we do anything to continue surviving? Just as we would do anything to continue surviving, to avoid death, elimination, similarly the ego does everything. In fact, we are the ego, right? So look at yourself. Look at a dying man. Look at how he clutches the straws. Look at how he grabs for breath. Right? We want to live. Classically, this is called jijivisha. Right? The fundamental tendency to just keep on, keep rolling on, to continue surviving, to not to die. So yes, obviously, most of that which calls itself as spirituality is nothing but the ego in action. Ego wearing a holy mask. Ego wearing a sacred veneer. Right? That's 99.9% of all spirituality. So, spirituality is in fact the most fortified, impenetrable base of the ego. At other places where the ego resides, hides, you can smoke it out, you can pull it out, right? Because those places are anyway not ordained wholly by us. Right? There is a rat in the hole. Nothing stops you from just smoking it out, or you put some water in it and the rat will just run away. And but what happens when a criminal hides in a temple? No, he's not hiding in the temple, he's a priest. Huh? How do you smoke him out? Yeah? That's the ego. Getting it? So be very, very cautious of the entire spiritual domain and spiritual people. Very, very cautious. It's not without reason that world over, in the course of history, we have had rebellions against religion. Most of those rebellions were justified, or mostly justified. Because there can be nothing more exploitative and debased than ego hiding in religion. And then you have to pull down the entire edifice, the entire architecture of religion. As happened in the 16th, 17th and 18th centuries in Europe. That was needed. Right? You could look at that at the macro level, and at the macro level you will call it a social phenomena. You will say the church was doing this, and the monarchy was doing this, and the people were oppressed, and there were no rights and such things. And on the other hand, there were thinkers and philosophers who were rising with fresh thoughts and ideas, and so the old structures were all detonated. You could say that, and that's a perspective at the macro level. But how do you look at it at the micro level? At the micro level, you talk in terms of the ego, right? Ego had started using spirituality. Ego had started using spirituality. Ego had started dominating, monopolizing religion. The rebellions were actually not against religion, they were against ego's misuse of religion. And that is something that most people do not understand. Are you getting it? Even today, when we talk of removing religion from public life, or we talk of the corrupting or debilitating influence of religion on certain sections of society, it is not really religion we are talking against. This has to be understood. We are actually talking of the misappropriation of religion by the ego. So bhakti, it is not as if whether the ego wants to misuse spirituality. The ego loves nothing more than spirituality when it can misuse it. Ego really, really loves spirituality. Which means most people who love spirituality are the ones in the field just to abuse the field. Which field are you talking of? The spiritual field. Very few people are in the spiritual field because they want redemption, or because they want to purify themselves, or really turn into better and more free and more truthful human beings. Very few people. In fact, it pains me to say this, but I must say, in being cautious, if you are to choose between a commoner and a spiritual person, be more cautious of the spiritual person. The commoner would at most take away your material possessions. At worst, he can steal your car, your bank balance and such things. The spiritual person, especially the spiritual guide, the spiritual master, the guru, his intention is to steal your soul. What do you mean by the soul? The very center of your mind. That's why I get a bit alarmed when somebody tells me that his life is getting too full of me or dominated by me, because that's not at all the intention. Spirituality is supposed to liberate, not dominate. Are you getting it? The commoner can at most hurt you physically, but the spiritual guru can hurt you in the most insidious of ways. He can damage you right at your core. He can debilitate you beyond repair. It's even, let me come from experience. It's far easier for me to speak to people, to counsel people who have never been in the spiritual way, who are coming fresh from their ordinary life and experiences. I can talk to them and they'll understand. There can be communication. But it becomes very difficult to talk to people who are coming from a spiritual order. It's as if their souls have been captured. It's as if their ears hear no more. Getting it? It's as if they have been irreparably damaged. It requires far greater effort to work on them. So bhakti, we are extremely cautious of spirituality, extremely cautious, especially where personal interactions are involved. By that I do not mean that it's all safe if you just read a book. If you just read a book, you have to watch out against yourself, because it's you who would be interpreting the book. So you have to be cautious of yourself. But if you are with a person living or dead, then you have to watch out against both yourself and that person. You have to keep asking yourself, what am I here for? I am here to learn something, to know something, to grow, to be better, to be more free, to see things more clearly. That's what my intention is. And you have to keep asking yourself, am I progressing in the right dimension? Because you might be progressing, but in an altogether different direction or dimension. Are you gaining clarity? If you are, then fine. Is your mind more centered now? Can you see things with insight now? If yes, then fine. Otherwise, there is no limit to the tamasha that can happen around a guru or in a spiritual order, in an organized path. There is no limit to the organized nonsense that can take place. Did you go to that person to partake in that organized nonsense? Yeah? You didn't. No. Then why do you forget your original purpose? Always remember your original purpose. You don't go to the doctor to celebrate his anniversary, or do you? Then why are you celebrating the Guru's birthday? You remain as messy, as chaotic, and as feeble internally as before. But like a langur, you are dancing on the Guru's birthday. What have you gained from the Guru? Are you getting it? Now, what is it within that really demands freedom? Obviously, the one that experiences bondage. Who else would demand freedom? The one who experiences bondage is her own bondage and is also her yearning against the bondage. The ego is one complicated thing, no? She loves bondage and she hates bondage. She is bondage and she is freedom at most. Don't I often say, you are not diseased, you are the disease. So the ego is not in bondage, the ego is the bondage. And at the same time, it is the ego that sublimates into the highest freedom. The ego is both. Look at the fact of the ego and all that you will see is bondages. Look at the potential of the ego and there is no limit. Next, why does a human being have the need to feel unique or different from the rest? Because in that lies the survival of the human being. Would you exist were you not different from the next person, your neighbor, the mat you are sitting on? Would you exist? What if you become one with everything? Where are you now? So our existence is founded on differentiation, individualization, division. You see, division. It's another matter that we call ourselves individuals, which connotes indivisibility. But the fact is that our very existence depends on division and divisibility. No? We can't be fully one even with our most intimate people, kith and kin. We need divisions, we need boundaries. And that's the reason we keep drawing boundaries everywhere. That's what the ego is. To exist, it needs as much differentiation as possible. This is that, this is that, this is that, this is that. And hence, one mark of spiritual growth is that you do not find differences that interesting anymore. What's on the menu? Yellow dal, black dal, fine, that doesn't matter. Whether it's yellow or black, fine. Yellow, black, green. I didn't even realize I was having black dal today, fine. And one mark of lack of spirituality is you have a keen eye for differences. No, don't give me rose pink, give me baby pink. No, there is a problem. If you have an eye that can differentiate between rose pink and baby pink, there is a problem. This is called samta. What? Samta. Samta. The eye starts refusing to acknowledge differences. You wear one set of clothes and that clothing you can take to the market, you can take to a holy place, you can take to the kitchen, you can take to the washroom, you can take to the bed, you can even take to an official meeting. You don't really see the need to have different outfits for different occasions. And if it is somehow impressed upon you to acknowledge the practical need to wear this or that, to be nicely organized for occasions, you kind of find it a burden, not a delight. For most people, it is a delight to be dressed appropriately for the occasion. Yes, what the hell? Are you getting it? Are you being served food in an aluminium plate? Or expensive china? A glass? I don't know. Marble plates? Do they come? Marble? They're marble plates. Gold plates, diamond plates. It matters to you not so much. I won't say it doesn't matter to you at all, because that would probably be an unattainable kind of pipe dream. Exactly, it doesn't matter to you, fine. Somebody tried to impress you hard with diamond-studded plates. And then there are controversies and pushbacks and shocks. Somebody has invested a good 3 hours in decorating himself. And he comes in front of you and you just don't notice the difference. You can't imagine how badly you offended him. And God forbid if it's a her. Because now the mind is just not eager to notice differences. The mind is residing in a certain oneness. Are you getting this? You know Vivek, discretion? Discretion we understand, right? As you progress spiritually, the criteria on which you discriminate evolves, the criteria itself evolves. Progressively, the criteria takes the shape of, is it of this world, temporal, spatial, then it belongs to one side of the divide. And if it is not, then it belongs to the other side of the divide. And everything that is spatial and temporal, material and ephemeral, is to be simply dumped on one side, irrespective of whether it's a diamond or a speck of dust. They belong to the same dimension. So I won't differentiate between the two. They belong to the same plane. How do I differentiate between the two? Differentiation is there between the dimension that belongs to the diamond and dust and the dimension that belongs to freedom. Now that's the way you discriminate. The worldly man discriminates between dust and diamond. The spiritual man keeps dust and diamond on the same plane and freedom on another plane. So to him, dust and diamond are the same, one. No discrimination. No, I don't see any difference. But he does see a great difference when it comes to that plane. He says, no, that plane is totally different from this plane. It's not as if all is one. No, all is not one. All is not one. The dusty road that leads to my teacher's place is different from the dust that I find elsewhere. So there is a difference. Dust and diamond are not different at all, but dust and dust can be very different. Do you get this? Now you see the different ways in which we want to pretend uniqueness. Of course, there are material ways, worldly ways. I'm more accomplished than you, I'm more successful than you, I'm taller than you, I'm more attractive than you, I'm bigger than you, I'm bulkier than you, I'm richer than you. Right? And then there are spiritual ways. I'm more enlightened than you. That's the reason why one must stay clear of this thing called enlightenment. It's the ultimate uniqueness that you bestow upon yourself. It is the ultimate crown that the ego puts on its own head. It is the club that has the most elite membership. Feels good, no? Talking of uniqueness. Could you be more unique than an enlightened one? And the ego loves it. Really loves it. The others who took a shot at uniqueness were all amateurs. They just limited themselves to kingdoms, money and power. Professional egoists get enlightened. Because kingdoms can be lost. Enlightenment is irrevocable. Once enlightened, always enlightened. Getting it? As they say, noobs go for kingdoms and pros go for enlightenment. Legends, no. Pros go for spirituality, legends go for enlightenment. There is nothing more deadly than getting caught in your own game. And there is nothing more delightful than beating yourself in your own game. Believe me. Want to have good fun? Just start catching yourself. Catch yourself doing this, doing that, doing this. You are the thief. Huh? Be your own policeman behind the thief. Keep catching yourself. There would be no greater delight than this. You'll find yourself smiling in solitude at yourself. It would be the most sincere smile you would have ever had. You're smiling to yourself. You have just caught yourself. Red, blue, black, green, yellow-handed. When it comes to the ego, it cheats you in the entire spectrum. Red is just one little color. The ego cheats you, we cheat ourselves. The ego cheats itself. We are not distinct from the ego. Huh? Or you could at most say, one part of the ego, one well-meaning part of the ego, catching the lower, the obnoxious, the more stubborn part of the ego. Is there something truly within all of us that demands a unique expression of itself? Well, yes, but that's not the ego. Please understand why. You said unique expression. The expressions that the ego takes are unique only in name. Otherwise, there is nothing unique at all in the expression of the ego. For example, one fellow says, I'll be unique by winning kingdoms. Now, is that really a unique act? Did it originally occur to you that you must win kingdoms, or is it a borrowed idea? If it's a borrowed idea, what's unique about it? Though you think that you would be unique if you win kingdoms, but there have been 1,000 before you who have had this idea. Even this idea is not yours, then how can a kingdom won on the basis of this idea be really yours? The idea is not unique, the kingdom is not unique, you are not unique. So the expressions that the ego takes are not unique at all. How can you call borrowed uniqueness as uniqueness? So yes, there is a uniqueness in each one of us. That uniqueness lies in our physical constitution. That uniqueness lies in the diversity of ways we take towards the truth. But remember fully well that the ego is a copycat. There is nothing unique about the ego or the expressions it takes. We talked of enlightenment. We are talking of deceptions in the spiritual field. So many people say they are enlightened. Would they have talked of enlightened had there not been other so-called enlightened people before them? Even their concept of enlightenment is a borrowed concept. Such a borrowed enlightenment. What kind of enlightenment is this? 42 other people have been enlightened, so I should also be enlightened. What's unique about this? You getting it? Though you want to feel unique. Oh, I'm so unique. The objects that you clutch or cling to might appear different, but the tendency to clutch, is it unique, original, happening for the first time? The ego is a stale repetition. A stale repetition that aims at newness. You can try that. You can keep an entire library in front of you, copy 2 sentences from one book, 3 from the next one, 1 from another one, 4 from some other book, and this way you can create some kind of a book of your own. And apparently it would be something unique, right? That's the ego. Copies from 8,000 different places and create something that looks unique. But is it unique? Is it unique? But you would be deceived. It would appear unique. It's just a motley combination. It's just a chaotic putting together of unrelated, irreconcilable things. Most people are fragmented within, because this thing they have taken from here, that thing they have taken from here, and the stuff taken from here cannot agree with the stuff taken from there, and therefore they live in a perpetual inner conflict. Right? One statement you have borrowed from the leftists, one statement you have borrowed from the rightists, and it's a very unique book that you get, right? But would one chapter of your book agree with the next chapter? Would one paragraph agree with the next paragraph? That's how most people are internally. One part of them, one impulse of them, one face of them just doesn't agree with the other face, other part, other impulse. One role that they take up doesn't agree with another role that they take up. Their role as a husband does not sit well with their role as a son. Their role as a father doesn't reconcile with their role as a professional. Why? Because neither of these roles is original. There are no 2 originalities, but there are 1,000 ways to be unoriginal. Can you be original in 2 different ways? No, you cannot be. Can there be 2 truths? No. But there can be 1,000 kind of falsenesses. Getting it? So yes, the very purpose of life is to let the truth express itself through you. No doubt about it. When you cease to exist, then truth expresses itself in your shape, your form. But for that to happen, first of all, you have to put yourself aside. You have to make way. How do we distinguish whether it's the ego expressing itself or the truth? How do we distinguish? Suffering. Are you anxious? Do you have to remain alert about things? Are you afraid of loss? Are you seeking refuge in the future? Do you keep lonely? Do you cling to companionship? If such things are happening, then you know the center you're coming from. Yeah?